Well, Bondra and I used this opportunity to go out and do some exploring, and we found ourselves at the Field Hospital of the 11th Corps. From this stone monument about 250 yards to the east is a stone farmhouse where George Spangler and his wife Elizabeth and 4 of his children lived. One of the primary reasons we wanted to come to this location is because there is a letter that was circulated on Andre's side of the family under Lamar Hudgens' side that stated that there was a Confederate soldier that was wounded here. And we wanted to find out specifically, could we find any of those details out? So we're about to commence our journey.
We came to see the Spangler house, which is closed, but as we were leaving, an employee stopped to see if we were okay, and he's giving us a private tour.
Now, after doing much research, I thought there might be a possibility that I'm actually related to the George Spangler side of the family. This historical battlefield would have been really cool to relate to. However, after doing much research, I found out that we were not related to this side of the Spanglers. My family did fight in the Civil War, but that was the Battle of Droop Mountain in West Virginia. It was the largest battle that they had in the West Virginia area, but it wasn't associated with this Spangler clan. So we're getting ready to move forward and continue the research and study of Andre's side of the family and see exactly what we could find out and what significance there was here. But we know one thing, her family was definitely here.
By first name. Most times it's just Spangler Farm, though. So,
Yeah.
But again, this was the largest of those hospitals, so there's a much greater chance this was the place.
Is there a cemetery close by where they would have laid them on
So-
a slab of granite?
So when you said that, of course, the first thought going through my mind is, here are the slabs of granite because the cemetery was right here in the orchard.
Oh.
But the other thing I'm thinking about is up on Cemetery Hill, which is where the town cemetery is at Evergreen. There was a basically discarded quarry rock up there that came from Powers Hill, which was also owned by the Spangler family. So those would be the two guesses.
But if there was a cemetery there, that's probably could have been very much.
Yeah.
Bet this was it.
Yes. So
Cool.
Wow, this is pretty crazy.
let me unlock just so you can take a look around, and then I'll make sure she takes you through all of the buildings here. But
Well, now that you said cemetery, and I mean, based on the letter, I mean, this could be the very place.
yeah. I hate to run out real quick.
No,
but I
no,
gotta
we
go.
understand. No,
But-
You grabbed
But
us.
let me have her come down.
if we
and
could
then
just,
she can show you the
yeah,
other places,
I'm just
too.
happy to walk around here.
And hopefully I'll get off my call and then I can come back and visit. You. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah,
So
yeah, thank you very much,
Yeah,
by
sure,
the way.
sure.
Well, what was the importance of the granite stone? Well, according to the letter written by Lamar Holiday on that July 3rd, 1863, making his final assault up Culp's Hill, he was shot in the thigh and also in the lower leg. Dropping to the ground in the fog of war, a Yankee grabbed him, pulling him across, thinking he was a Union soldier. Because Lamar was a Confederate, he had to wait some time, but finally his surgeon determined that he was going to have to remove his leg to save his life from his injuries. However, at that moment, being placed on the table, a Union soldier came in who had higher priority. He was part of the 11th Corps, and Lamar was placed on the stone. The stone actually was cool enough to stop the bleeding and coagulate. He suffered disabilities for the rest of his life, but he did save his leg. It's an amazing story.
I'm just perplexed because, well, although we have completely replanted the orchard, but as far as I know, they haven't removed any stones from out here. So this would have been exactly as it would have been in 1863. But we did put the orchard back in. There are no slabs out here, though, so they're all.
He could have
right
literally
here.
been described.
It could have been.
Yeah. We're trying to get the letter because it was a handwritten letter by him, and we're trying to see what he said.
Dad's calling James now. Right
Okay,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
I read his written letter experience of the Gettysburg and described being laid on a piece of granite and then bleeding, but then the coolness from the stone came up apparently and helped coagulate that to save his leg.
Now there is a stone over there too that we have used to drain that out onto so it doesn't take out the soil.
Oh.
So that's another potential slab that would have been over here as well. So we have this big guy, which
Yeah, hard to say.
there's a lot of this lovely Gettysburg diabase all over this place. Yeah.
And this was, I assume this is pretty close to what was here originally?
Well, this side of the home wouldn't have been this far out.
Okay.
In fact, actually, the original house only came to the edge of the porch.
Oh, okay.
So if you take a look at the home from this side, they almost seamlessly put the addition on.
Oh, yeah.
But right actually where the porch ends is where the original house ended.
Oh, wow.
So it was actually only the 6 windows.
Okay.
Yeah.
The family, when they stayed here, they stayed in the 2nd floor. And so they ended up kind of hunkering down because they didn't want to leave. They're like, no, this is our house. We bought it, our property. We're going to see what you people do to it. And so they stuck it out.
Wow.
All 7 of them, actually.
Brave.
What we call now the ceremonial copier room for George and Elizabeth Spangler. But, yeah, small space. And to not be able to open the windows or if you did, you're just going to get the smell of
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah, that's one thing that, you hear about the death, but the smell and all the things that come with it, was horrific.
Cannot imagine.
So I'm sure I think he opened up the summer kitchen. So we did put it back. So now it's the Elizabeth Spangler Dream Home Kitchen. It's truly, that these people went through. They need something remarkable. So we've completely.
So this was the outdoor kitchen like they used in that period to keep the house from fire or cool, right?
Yep,
So.
keep it cool. And one of the really neat things we just discovered as we were restoring this is all of the plaster was removed. So then we discovered that. So the wood stove.
Oh.
Or like the bread stove.
I'd be darned.
Yeah, it's still sealed off on the outside, they closed it up.
Right.
But we didn't even know that was there for all these years. So this had been completely plastered over and closed
It's
up.
tremendous what you guys are doing in these places.
Well, Armistead was actually, he was brought right out here.
Okay.
So
Bye-bye.
Louis Armistead.
So how did he end up getting here? I mean, how would they have brought a general like him coming over across? I assume at that time either it's post-battle or across lines, right? Or
Well, this was he was injured the 3rd day at Pickett's charge.
okay,
So basically, at that point, he had just crossed over the Union line when he was shot and captured.
okay,
The whole rest of the battlefield is that way, 1 mile,
okay.
if that. It's kind of, you can't see it here because of the tree line, but really it's not far away at all. So they were actually, once he was injured, because he was a general, he was pretty much just quickly pulled away from there, thrown on an ambulance, brought down here to get him away from all the action, everything that was going on. Because he was an officer, he ended up actually over here and not in the barn with the rest of the enlisted men. So they brought him over here to the summer kitchen to try to keep an eye on him, to take care of him a little bit better than just the regular guys. Now, we actually, Ron Kirkwood, who wrote the book on this place, in fact, he wrote 2 of them because he found so many stories. He ended up actually discovering another letter where a soldier had said Louis Armistead was right inside the doorway of the summer kitchen. In fact, he was actually asking the doctors if they could move him because he was getting tired of being stepped over to get to the other guys that were in there. Frederick Stowe was here, Harriet Beecher Stowe's son. So the woman who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yes.
Her son was injured here and was actually in the summer kitchen with him as well.
Wow.
So, yeah, pretty fascinating stuff. Let me show you the barn because that's really cool too.
So most likely a foot infantry would have been brought over here, not like the general.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, actually, the Confederates would have been in this side, the carriage shed, which is this side part of the barn. So the barn itself had anywhere from 400 to 500 guys in it, depending on what you read.
Wow.
Which is ludicrous.
Wow.
Now they would have put the Confederates in here, so they were laying side by side along this section in here, waiting to get taken care of because they weren't the Union guys, and this was the 11th Corps Field Hospital. So there was a little bit of, preferential treatment. If you had a little crescent moon on anything you were wearing, you got treatment before anybody else because this is supposed to be the 11th Corps Field Hospital. So, I mean, if you have a second corps, if you're wearing like the little stink foil thing with the little clover, you're still going to get probably second treatment, but these guys are going to get the last taken care of.
Yeah.
So that's why they were kind of here. There was still a little bit in the elements, but kind of covered.
It's amazing though to think that, you know, like you said, 200 wounded sitting in here, and and you said how many? 400, 500 maybe
in the whole barn itself.
Not to mention outside here, the less wounded. And
let me take a gander in here, make sure that we don't have any.
Hard for my mind to even fathom this sometimes.
All right, just want to make sure we don't have any friendlies hanging out here. I'm already coming here. We are the land of rat snakes, and they're 6 feet long.
Oh.
So, I just want to make sure we don't have anybody hanging out.
Yeah, we don't want any other wounded, surprised or otherwise.
Before I bring you in here and suddenly we find someone just hanging out. Okay. Looks like the coast is clear. Some people don't appreciate that. Looks like the squirrels have been coming in though and taking care of their nuts in here.
So this was just a traditional, looks like barn, hay barn.
Traditional bank barn.
Bank barn in here.
So this would have this section down here, like 80% of the wood in this barn is still original.
Oh wow.
We had to replace a lot of it, but 80% of it is still from the 1840s when it was built. You can tell like some of these. I mean, that's a whole tree. That's crazy that they just cut off the sides from.
Wow.
And then fit together. When we restored the barn, there were some parts like this we had to completely replace because when we first bought the place in 2008, this was actually filled up to here with manure.
Oh, wow.
Old hay, everything just left for decades and decades, and it just ate away at the wood. So things like that we had to do replacements for. But like that one there, that would be original.
Oh, yeah.
You can still tell from the way that it's hewn. Yeah. And down here would have been surgery. I mean, you would have had the most injured guys down here because they were the closest to actually getting worked on. They actually had about 5 or 6 different surgeons working out here in the forebay. Come on. Woo. Underneath this cover because they wanted to be outside because the air meant it was healthier. So the air was wafting away the stinky odors, which of course it's the odors that are making you sick.
You're right.
But so yeah, these guys were laid out here and set up. So you had all the wood boards set up and these guys getting worked on. Ron's book and other accounts, the stacks of limbs really truly are man high out here as people are cleaning up and taking things away, but they're just trying to work so fast they can't keep up with that. Remarkable though, this site itself administered to about 1,900 soldiers, and about 1,000 of them or more actually were laying out there in the fields. So they would just kind of lay down a blanket and say, "Here you go. All right, good luck. We'll get to you eventually." And for all that, we know of 200 of them who died here.
Out of 1,900.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Now, once they left here and were officially shipped out of here the following month, like
infection or other things.
Sent to Baltimore, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, off to bigger hospitals. I don't think we don't have the tracing for that to actually know how many of them passed away afterwards. Yeah.
But a good record for what happened here.
Yeah.
And so this house, this farm, this estate here, really saw most action from the third day, right? Or did it?
All
or was
3
this?
days.
Okay. So it's established right out there.
Yep,
Okay.
it was established right off the bat on the first day. In fact, actually, it's the 11th Corps because the 11th Corps ends up fighting the first day out on the north and west side of town. So as they're retreating through town. I mean, this includes all of Francis Barlow's division out there. Oliver Otis Howard. So, the 11th Corps was his. So that whole first day was his guys out there and then end up retreating back through town. Okay. And they got hit pretty darn hard. I mean, the first day of battle here, was more than a skirmish, as Dan Sickles would tell you.
Yeah.
It was pretty vicious. So these surgeons, as they were coming up, the doctors, they had come down that lane, pretty much took one look around, because right now they're behind the Union lines, they're far enough back, but it's so close to the Cemetery Hill with Cemetery Ridge where they want to be. Culp's Hill's right over there, so it's also the other part of the ridge line. And so it's snuggled right back here. It's like centrally located. Yeah. Like Little Round Top's just over that way.
Right.
So it's right behind the lines, and they have everything that a doctor would need here. You've got coverage, you've got open space. That was a very functioning farm, like successful farm, so they have anything else that was food here. Mainly it was space. Really was mostly space, because this ended up becoming also the standing ground for the artillery. So, and that artillery was pulled up. It was the reserves that was used on the day of Pickett's charge. So,
I noticed they had artillery cannons, so I figured there had to be somebody shooting from here.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, they weren't shooting from here.
They were just back reserves being pulled in?
Reserves, yeah.
Okay.
So they got pulled up Granite Schoolhouse Lane, which really was a dirt lane at the time. Not much more than like a field road. And they dragged that up to prepare when they started getting the incoming from the precursor to Pickett's charge.
Wow.
Yeah. So they pulled all those out of there, but all of this open space was what they came back here and they saw, and they went, "Mwah,
Yes,
perfect."
this is perfect.
Yeah, you can see it.
It's humbling.
I'll take you upstairs so you can actually
Sure.
look at the threshing floor too. We do a lot of living history here. Sometimes they have a little too much fun making making headstones.
It's wow. This is just hard to think, honey, that there were all those men in here
I know.
hanging on.
Yeah. Just watch your step. Okay. I'm sure they've replaced the steps, but there's a piece of wood here too.
Okay.
Yeah, step over. Yeah, so you can see here, this is actually original wood because it has the markings on to tell you where it goes.
Oh.
Some of the old woodworking ways.
It's beautiful, though. I mean, it really is. It's gorgeous in here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure back in the day it was full of hay and all sorts of farming stuff, but...
And we have our...
Oh, is this what they would transport?
Yeah, it's a rebuilt ambulance. It is a reconstruction, not an original, but it's a reconstruction to the nth degree. So we made it as absolutely as accurately as possible.
So is this the way that they would bring Armstead through, most likely on something like this, or would they do it by stretcher? Or
He wouldn't have had something this nice.
Okay.
Not straight from the battlefield. No,
Okay.
they would have been using this for their own guys. This would have been like if you were further out and you were lucky enough to ride one of these. Like they would have been on the third day. They would have been bringing some of these out and then bringing some of their soldiers back. But this would have been a sweet ride. I mean, it's got all of this nice little cushion that you got.
Oh,
here.
yeah. Yes, it's actual suspension.
Yeah.
These springs. Wow.
So yeah, the Confederates would have loved to have this on their retreat. Most of the time they were using old like farm carts and they were hitting every bump on those roads on the way out of town.
So we've had an amazing experience here. Came down a road that was blocked, thought we'd never come here to see the house, and then not only are we doing that, we're getting an exclusive private tour.
And like every story, there's a beginning and an end. And I couldn't wait to find out more about what happened exactly to Lamar Holiday. And in doing some research, I found a book called The Boy Soldiers of the Confederacy. And there's a section there that depicts the story of him running up Culp's Hill, being shot in the thigh, as he was trying to pursue a Union color bearer just before the retreat began. In many cases, a lot of the soldiers would die from wounds such as that. But the reality is we found a generational Bible that was presented to Lamar and through the family. And it shows that in 1863, on the 13th of that month, only 10 days after the battle, a friend signed it and said, "Get well." He lived a long and prosperous life after the war, and in fact, in 1884, he was a department manager of a hotel, and through various responsibilities, he was ultimately a superintendent of the City of Charities. He ultimately was elected the superintendent of the Home of Confederates, and he died at 93, living a full life. It's amazing when you find out your family history.